All right, guys. So we have Mike Tomlin's press conference leading up to our Week 9 matchup versus the Colts. Um, so I mentioned in at least Tomlin's post game press conference after the Packers game why this is all so late. So go check that one out for the explanation. But I'm just going right through all of these, and we're making up the ground. So I am doing this sort of like as if the game hasn't happened. I don't have the knowledge of the game, basically. That's how I'm going into these. So let's see what Coach Tomlin had to say going into our Week 9 game versus the Colts.
Good afternoon. As always, I'll start with a quick review of our last performance. As I said after the game, man, just really disappointing on a lot of fronts. But probably the most important component of it is we didn't put 60 minutes of football together. Felt like we were doing the things that we needed to do over the course of the first 30 minutes of action, although it wasn't perfect by any stretch. You're always a little bit concerned when you're settling for field goals when you're playing good people. It seems like touchdowns is how it gets done in our business at this level. And so it was a little bit less than comfortable at halftime settling for 3 field goals. I think those drives were stopped by penalties and negative plays on 1st and 10. Put us in some 2nd and long circumstances. We didn't perform very well in 2nd and long, not only in the first half of the game, but in the totality of the game. It produced a lot of 3rd and longs in the game. That's low percentage conversion rates for us. That's low percentage conversion rates for everyone, to be quite honest with you. We were in more 3rd and longs in that game than we're comfortable with, and I think we suffered the consequences of that, particularly as the game wore on. On the other side of the ball, I thought a couple 3rd down conversions in the 3rd quarter were significant, not only in terms of keeping us on the field and producing touchdown scoring drives, but I thought it just changed the texture of the day. They got 60 yards on one 3rd down conversion. They got 35 on another. That's 100 yards on 2 plays, field flipping plays, touchdown drive producing plays. And I just didn't think we did a nice job recovering from those. First and foremost, you don't want those plays to happen. But after they happened, I didn't think we did a good enough job recovering from that and finding our footing as a collective football group, offense, defense, and special teams, in an effort to make the necessary plays over the course of the last 15 minutes to win the game. Regarding those plays, we certainly need to be better in 3rd down than we've been, but it doesn't necessarily mean dramatic changes in terms of schematics and things of that nature. If you look at those 2 plays, on the 60-yard play, the quarterback was hit as he let it go. And so it's details that are usually the difference when it's a millisecond. And on the other play, the roughly 35-yard play, he got outside the pocket on us and extended, and we certainly got to do a better job of keeping him constricted in the pocket, man, and getting 2 guys at the catch point down the grass. And that's one thing that we didn't do in either circumstance. We play a lot of man-free concepts. It usually gives us an opportunity to get 2 guys at the ball down the grass. We didn't in those instances, and it produced field flipping, drive producing, touchdown drive producing plays that really kind of changed the texture of the ball game. But for us, we view all 3 phases as an opportunity to win. We didn't make the necessary plays in the 3 phases to secure victory. There's some personality things that were concerning as the game wore on. The turnover component of the game is something that we value here, obviously, and is one of the building blocks for engineering victory for us. We turned the ball over in the second half. We didn't get any turnovers. I think that's the 2nd game in a row that we didn't get any turnovers, and that hadn't been us. And we certainly need to get back to that component of our winning formula. Protecting and preserving the football while taking it away from our opponents. That certainly is going to be significant this week when we lean in and play the Colts, man. They're a group that does that very well. from a health standpoint, before I get directly to Indy, I'll update you on a couple of guys. Scotty Miller, we talked about last week, man, he had a broken finger. It has been repaired. How functional he is will determine his ability to contribute or the level or the quality of that contribution. Daniel Akawale has got a ACL injury that will definitively have him out. Deshaun Elliott can be declared out this week also with his hyperextended knee. Isaac Siamalu can be characterized as questionable with his pec injury. Just had a brief conversation with him in the training room. He's in a good mindset. He certainly is going to be limited at the early portions of the week, but he'll have a chance to contribute, particularly because he's a veteran player. He has some global snaps in his bank that could be an asset to him in terms of being ready to play on a limited number of snaps that maybe a younger player would not have. We got some other bumps and bruises, man, associated with play that may limit some people at the early portions of the week. And then we'll harden that up as we get closer to game time, but not expecting any of those guys to lack availability at the end of the week. Now on to Indy. Man, they're a really good football team, but they need no endorsement from me. I've been watching the video over the last 48 hours or so. It is telling, to be quite honest with you. Starting first and foremost with their offense. They're high scoring. They don't punt very often. And the way that they're getting that done is pretty black and white. They got a rock solid offensive line that's been together, led by Nelson largely for a number of years. They do a really good job of controlling the line of scrimmage and getting hats on hats. They're a good zone scheme group. They're a good gap scheme, a pull scheme group. And obviously Nelson is a major component of that. Behind that collective, man, they got Jonathan Taylor, who is really on top of his game right now. But he has been for a number of years. I think in 22 and 23, he dealt with some injuries, but 24 through 25, you see his talents. He's significant. He's got great stop-start ability. He's got great short area burst and vision. He's got the long speed to finish plays, as evidenced by the 80-yarder that he had last week. But he's always been explosion play capable. When you play a guy like that, man, it's really an all-day job because of that home run hitting ability. We got to do a really good job of setting the edges and certainly being in the appropriate gaps. They do a nice job of running the ball out of a variety of personnel groups and offensive formation structures that make you cognizant of that regardless of what they have on the field. Because they play so well behind Taylor in their running game, I think they've really done a nice job of preserving and protecting the ball, as I mentioned earlier. I think they got 4 turnovers on the season. Daniel Jones has been spectacular in that space. He's taking care of the ball. He's distributing the ball to a rock-solid group of eligibles now that's been together for a number of years. Pittman and Pierce have been together for a number of years. Pittman is rough and tumble. He's got the in-breaking routes. He's the chain mover, if you will. Pierce has always been a downfield threat, a guy that to get one-on-one down the grass with is a problem. And certainly coming off last week's performance, man, where we're in some one-on-one circumstances that were field-flipping plays, that certainly has our attention as we prepare today. But it's not just those two guys. They got Downs that plays in the slot as a capable interior slot receiver. They got A.D. Mitchell, man, a second-round pick from a couple years ago, who is really talented. And certainly they got their first-round pick, the young tight end out of Penn State, man, that hadn't warmed up to it at all. Man, he's plug and play, not only in terms of his playing ability, but their utilization of him. They use him in a variety of schemes. They get the ball in his hands early and often. Some of the things that you saw on video at Penn State, man, you see on video in Indianapolis. But that's why you take dynamic players like him that high. He's been an integral component of what they've been able to do offensively. Can't say enough about it. Kudos to Daniel Jones, man, and his ability to redefine his narrative. But I doubt that can be considered an outlier today. It's a lot of pressure being a young quarterback, man, drafted high in the programs, man, that don't have a lot of traction. There have been a lot of examples of guys, when given an opportunity to turn the page and get a new environment, the talents that made them high-round draft picks turn up, and certainly his is turning up in 2025 in this environment. But as I mentioned, man, he's in a stable environment. Shane does an awesome job with the offensive schematics. He's got a stable receiving group, guys that have been together for a number of years. He's got a veteran offensive line and running back who are on top of their game. And so when you put all of those things together, man, it's not surprising that he and they are doing well. On the other side of the ball, we're familiar with these guys from a personnel standpoint because we've played them quite a bit here recently. But it also is some new schematics, new to them, but not necessarily new to us. We've competed against Lou over the years, from his years in Cincinnati as a defensive coordinator. I see some things that are certainly Lou, but he's certainly adaptable in terms of highlighting the talents of the men that he works with. It starts inside and up front with their defense. Buckner and Stewart are Grizzly veteran players, man, who are really good at what they do. They control the line of scrimmage. Stewart's really tough against the run. Buckner obviously is a dynamic pass rusher on the interior. They do some things to create matchups for him on guards, on centers. The schematic variations that you see, particularly in one-dimensional passing moments, really highlights their talents. They got a nice edge group that runs deep. They play a lot of people. They're multiple. It helps them on third down, man. They get in a bunch of structures on third down. You can see nickel 4-2, nickel 5-1, dime 3-2, dime 41. Lou does a nice job of keeping you off balance by mixing up a variety of personnel groups, particularly in one-dimensional passing moments. At the linebacker level, man, got a lot of respect for Franklin. He's their defensive quarterback. I just appreciate a guy who's grown and developed within a system or a location. In playing them over the years, man, at the early stages of his career, he was a core teamer, and then he became like a rundown defender and then a support defender to Shaq Leonard, and then he became the defensive quarterback, and it's just been a nice, fluid progression. He's a volume tackler. He has been for a number of years. He gets to the ball all over the field. He's a very good blitzer. Lou's using him in a very similar way that he used Logan Wilson from his time in Cincinnati. You can see some parallels in terms of preparing for these guys. They use Kenny at the nickel spot in a very similar way that they use Mike Hilton, for example, at the nickel spot in Cincinnati. Again, it doesn't make operating any easier, but it's certainly some nice things to draw from a familiarity standpoint, so that we can get better equipped or get a better understanding of some of the things that they're doing, so that we can, counteract that. But they're a great group. They're getting a bunch of turnovers, but they've been up on some people. People have been one-dimensional, and usually bad turns to worse, and they've benefited from that. They've done a nice job of preserving and protecting the ball. I think their point differential on the season is, plus 150. And I think it's indicative of some of those things that we've been discussing. They're a really good group. They're rolling. They got really good momentum. It's an awesome challenge for us. I'm excited about the prep process that leads to performance. And so we got a big week ahead of us, man. But it's always nice to perform in Acrisure, and we're excited about that. I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Mike, Kemp said after the game that he didn't think that the team, the players, handle adversity very well. And he said if they start feeling sorry for themselves, it's going to avalanche. And he said it was a clear case of that. Do you agree with that? Did you see that?
I certainly agree with that. As I mentioned, I don't think I like how we responded to the explosion plays, field flipping plays, drive producing conversion third downs that happened in the third quarter. I didn't think our offense responded very well to the non-call on the first third down of the half. And, you don't always have control over what happens to you in game. Rest assured, some things are going to happen. There's ebb and flow over the course of 60 minutes. But in that instance, as a collective, we feel like we didn't respond in the appropriate or the desired way. We didn't smile in the face of it. We didn't produce the type of plays that counteract those things and get the balance back in our favor. And so we're certainly being critical of ourselves, and we're utilizing that as fuel as we prepare for our next opportunity.
How do you fix that? Is it is guys looking in the mirror? How do you fix that?
The first component of fixing it is acknowledging it. You really don't get an opportunity to fix it until you face those circumstances again. And so we spent some time acknowledging it. We're going to get back to work. We certainly believe that we work in the right spirit. We do the right things environmentally. We're going to get back to work, man, and wait for our opportunity to rectify it. You can spend a lot of time talking about your ills, but the true fixes come in stadiums. And so that's why sometimes I'm somewhat hesitant to respond to the how do you fix it question. There's certainly procedurally things that you go about doing that fixes it, but the fix happens in stadium, and the rest of it is just talk.
Mike, you've got a pretty mature group, especially on defense. Should they, at this point in their careers, be able to handle adversity better than they did on Sunday?
You know, sure. Our kids should do what we tell them to do, but they often don't. You know, we all fall short of perfection, man. That's why we're always working as individuals and as a collective, whether it's football or life.
Like just one clarification, injury-wise, on Elliott, you said hyperextension. Is that actually a positive thing as opposed to what you thought you saw on Sunday night?
I didn't have any preconceived notions, and so I just have learned over the years to wait on clarity from the medical experts, and so I don't know that I had a perception.
Is week to week a fair standard to describe him?
It is. We haven't discussed that at all yet, but you can characterize him as out for this week, certainly.
When you look at the way that Indy's offense runs with Tyler Warren and those big tight ends, I mean, what do you miss when you don't have him on the field for that?
He's a significant component of what we do, particularly relative to some of the things that Indy does well. He is a central figure in our secondary in terms of run defense, for example. He covers tight ends oftentimes in passing circumstances, and so certainly we have some adapting to do in terms of how we divide the labor up this week. But that's always the case when you lose someone, particularly someone significant. It's not a one-person job, it's a multi-person job, and that's the spirit in which we're planning as we sit here today. There'll be several people given an opportunity to meet the demands of what he does for us.
What have you learned about playing against Shane Steichen over the years? Not just him coaching in Indianapolis, but also like you faced him in 2022 when he was OC.
I think the run game balance, the use of quarterback mobility, the run game balance, the use of quarterback mobility, the corresponding play passes and misdirection passes, his ability to run the ball and pass the ball out of various offensive personnel groups and formation structures. His gun running game is really impressive. His quarterback up under passing game is really impressive. He's got a well-balanced and diverse attack. And he's got a specialized division of labor. You see it being played out in some of the guys that we mentioned. Pierce being a down-the-field threat, Pittman being a chain mover, et cetera. But that's usually the case when you're talking about good offenses, man. There's well-defined division of labor. There's versatility. There are multiple personnel groups and so forth, and all of that kind of reflects Shane and his group.
Mike, you said that you don't necessarily want to fundamentally change the scheme in some of these instances, specifically third down, but do you look at taking over sole play calling for defense or making adjustments?
No, that's not on the table as we sit here today. We just got to keep doing what we're doing and do it better.
There were some bold statements made early on before the season started about what type of defense this could be. Obviously, it didn't play out how you envisioned it, but what do you chalk that maybe disconnect up to from the early evaluation to what we're seeing play out?
We make no excuses about how or why we fall short. Our job is to perform and perform at a high level, and we haven't done that. And so I'm excited about getting back to it. 7 games or whatever doesn't make a season. We certainly got more in front of us and more opportunities to write our story, whether it's individuals, whether it's a component of our team, or whether it's our team in general. I think that's our general mindset.
Like Cam and a few others talked about not enough fight. Is that the same as handling adversity, or is that a separate issue?
I think it's all being described in a variety of ways. I didn't see or hear his words, and so I'm not going to speculate on what he meant. But Cam and I are usually aligned in terms of how we see things relative to this collective and what we need to do to push forward.
So did you see a lack of fight when you watched the tape?
No, I don't necessarily say a lack of fight in terms of effort. I'm talking about fight in terms of playmaking. You know, you don't get credit for trying hard. We're not in the try-hard business. Our fight is about production and producing, and we certainly didn't produce enough plays over the last 30 minutes of the game, particularly in any of the phases to secure victory.
Like you said for Cincinnati, that you felt failure to stop the run was a component of not getting them into disadvantages down in distance. You largely stopped throwing against Green Bay, but they were still able to get there with short passing. Is that a similar problem that needs to be addressed?
No, I thought the run game wasn't an issue versus Green Bay. Certainly tackling in the passing game was. Tucker was a major component of that. We didn't do a good enough job getting him on the ground in particular. I think he had 100 yards of run after catch himself.
2 weeks, quarterbacks have gotten the balls out really quick against your defense. How do you kind of counteract that and get more production from your pass rush?
I think that's been our life for a number of years. I think anytime you got dynamic rushers, I think that's the first way that you work to minimize them. I think that's everyone's agenda, to be quite honest with you, when they play us, to run the ball in an effort to stay on schedule, to minimize one-dimensional, long-yardage circumstances, and to get the ball out quickly. And so from that standpoint, it's nothing new. It requires no quote-unquote adjustments. Certainly, we can coach and play better.
You guys install rules on, for the defense to respond to different things as the pre-snap plays out, and you're seeing these mistakes that continue to happen. How do you guys course correct on that when it's like, hey, we've installed this, you know what it is, and it's still being a problem?
I think you're always putting 8 pounds in a 5-pound bag. I just think that's the nature of what we do as coaches. There's never completeness of work. You never can say, oh, we got that. No, you got it until the next time something comes up. And that's not only defensively, but that's in all 3 phases of the game. You're continually tooling and retooling what it is that you do, making sure that it remains sharp, and when it doesn't, finding the appropriate fixes or alterations in an effort to keep concepts, people, or units going.
Sort of that point then, Mike, what did you determine, what did you discover about where you guys are in the high red zone, kind of to your opening comments about some of the drives that stalled out? Aaron mentioned that as well in his postgame.
Yeah, sometimes it's just about playing clean, you know. You get a penalty and it puts you behind the chains, or you have an ineffective first down play for a variety of reasons, and it puts you in 2nd and long. That's kind of been our issues. Again, I don't know that it requires anything dramatic in terms of an altering of personality relative to plans or scheme. We certainly could put them in a better circumstance to minimize negativity, to minimize some of the penalties that have occurred, and certainly we can put them in better position to perform, and they certainly can perform better. It is certainly a component of the game that is significant for us, something that we value. We've largely been really good as an offensive unit in the red area, but we certainly were not, particularly in the high red Sunday night.
How do you evaluate the job that Terrell Austin's done to this point?
You know, I've known Terrell a long time. He's very capable. He's very thorough. I've largely been pleased with his work, but certainly he and I are not pleased with where we are right now from a defensive unit perspective, and so we're just going to keep working.
Like, do you still see communication issues in the secondary, or is it just guys not finishing plays?
You know, in some instances, it's communication, but communication is always strained in the secondary, particularly when you're faced with pre-snap shifts and motions. And so I'm not going to act like that's some earth-shattering statement. As I mentioned when we were talking about tooling and retooling, that's a component of coaching that you'll always be urgent regarding. Pre-snap communication, because week in and week out, the adjustments change, the shifts and motions change based on offensive units, based on the talent within those offensive units, how you choose to deploy your people based on those things. And so there are alterations to communication and adjustments every week, and so there's always urgency there. We certainly can be better there, and we will.
Was in over Slay late in the game. What went into that decision?
We were just playing. We were rolling guys. Eccles has been good for us and is deserving to play, and we played him some.
Ranked last in the league in total defense, but you also haven't had a takeaway since the Dublin game. Which is a bigger red flag to you in terms of the way your defense is trending?
You pick. You know, I just think that, you know, they both are significant in terms of playing the type of defense that we desire.
How would you characterize the play of Slade? He only played about 50% of the snaps last week.
You know, he's been solid at times. Certainly, he's left a few plays out there, but I think that's not only reflective of him, but reflective of the collective. You can say the same thing about us as coaches, starting first and foremost with myself.
Like, it looks like you guys only had 10 guys on the field on that 2-point attempt. How does that happen, and who's maybe in charge of making sure you got 11 out there?
Eccles was in for Slay. Eccles thought that they were going for one. I think he came off the field because he's not on field goal block, and we weren't able to get the transitional component of that. And that happens from time to time when you're rolling a lot of people. You never like it, but the reality is the more people you play, the more complex rotations are, particularly when rotations get abnormal.
When you look at the lack of turnovers, is it more, or teams maybe just being more careful with the ball, or are you guys simply just missing opportunities?
I would imagine teams are working to be careful with the ball. I mean, I know we work to be careful with the ball. Sometimes it's just not taking advantage of opportunities. I know we probably dropped 3 or 4 balls against Cleveland, for example. And there's a price to pay when you miss opportunities. And so it's not only about producing opportunities, but it's about taking advantage of them. And we hadn't done that. There have been some balls on the ground that we weren't able to recover, for example. And so we're just going to keep working, man. We feel really good about our values regarding our turnover culture, the things that we tangibly do, the physical labor that we do week in and week out on a routine basis, not in a reactionary way relative to the fact that we're not getting turnovers right now. No, it's just a component of our everyday business. It has and will continue to be because we value that component of play. We're not getting the fruit of that labor, but we're committed to continuing to work.
You guys, in the past 2 games, you guys, the quarterbacks have basically averaged getting the ball out before 3 seconds because of their quick reads. What do you guys have to do to take away primary reads more consistently? And, you know, and how do you kind of correct what you guys have been doing against that?
You know, there's a lot of answers to that, to be honest with you. None of it earth-shattering or interesting. You change up schematics, you play man, you play bogus zones, all of which we do. We just haven't been doing it well enough to minimize what you discussed, and so we're going to keep working.
The recent play of the secondary or the injury to Elliott make you more likely to pursue a trade for some secondary help?
I think we're always open for business, particularly as we get close to the trade deadline. We're always buyers. We're always trying to position ourselves to be the best that we can be this year. But that not only applies to the secondary that you asked about, I'm sure that applies to all 3 phases of the game.
Mike, you guys saw Jones basically like a year ago. How does he look different on tape than he did when he was in New York?
He's at the sticks of a really good offense. They're running the ball. They're taking care of it. He's got some eligibles that have been together. He just looks really comfortable in a structured system, and it's going really well for him.
Like just one league-wide thing here, as far as about the halfway point, how are you finding the implementation and the communication to the coaches of the expedited review process?
It has been a non-issue.
Now here's a Black Friday deal you'll enjoy all year from Ashley. Save up to $600.
Mike, there's reports of you guys worked out Valdez Scanlon yesterday, and reports that you're going to sign him. Can you speak to that? And you're going to have.
We're also working out Von Bell and Eddie Jackson today. It's just a normal procedure for us on Monday and Tuesday, like it is for the other 31 teams. We're continually evaluating what's out there and how we could potentially be better. If we sign them, you'll hear about it.
Mike, how has Spencer grown as an extra offensive lineman if he has to fill in for Isaac?
We have no reservations about his ability to perform and perform at a starter level. He's done it in the past. That's why we work to be inclusive regarding his participation. He's done some awesome things at an offensive lineman reporting as eligible. And so I'm excited for him if Isaac is unavailable and he gets an opportunity.
All right.
Great, thanks.
All right. So didn't write down any notes because you can see right here. So I have a good chunk of stuff in my head that I'm just gonna spew. Aquale tore his ACL. Don't know if it was confirmed quite at this time as Tomlin was talking, but definitely during the week before the Indy game. Again, I'm trying to go from the perspective of the Indy game has not happened. So Aquale's gone for the year, tore his ACL. To only have a hyperextended knee for Deshaun Elliott is kind of amazing, because when you saw him get hurt and the aftermath of that, you're like, oh God, he's gone for the year, right? And it's like, oh, he only hyperextended his knee. He's week to week. Yeah, maybe he goes on IR, but and he did end up going on IR before the Colts game. I think he ended up on IR after the trade in order to make room for that player, which I'm going to get into as well. Not in this video, in another video. So, you okay, Daryl? You alright? Getting a little riled up? Someone might need to go outside, so I'm gonna finish my thoughts and end this video. So, good to hear on those injuries. As far as the game, God, it pisses everyone off that, they didn't perform better, right? And you've got Tomlin saying that he's, I'll put it this way, he's pleased with the overall body of work of Terrell Austin in general, not this year, this moment, but overall. And here's the thing. I think Terrell Austin is a fine secondary coach. That's what he was before he was the defensive coordinator, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure he was the secondary coach. So he is a fine secondary coach. That's probably about the top that he should be. Sometimes you're just a great coordinator and you shouldn't be a head coach. Sometimes you're a great secondary coach and you shouldn't be a D coordinator. You can be a great wide receiver coach and you shouldn't be an OC, or a great quarterback coach and you shouldn't be an OC. Sometimes you're just not ready. In some cases, you never will be ready for a certain level. Colts. What do they do well? And this is where it gets bad for the Steelers, right? Let's start at their young, promising rookie tight end, Tyler Warren. Having a nice rookie year. Essentially almost like a Brock Bowers type year, almost, right? Where, he's for sure a starter on any fantasy team, right? And we're going to be talking about him probably for years to come as one of the best tight ends in the entire NFL. So Steelers struggle versus tight ends. We just saw it versus Tucker Kraft. Hunter Henry had 2 touchdowns when we played the Patriots. So they've struggled versus tight ends, especially the tight ends that know what they're doing. So Tyler Warren, check. Jonathan Taylor is having an amazing year. Like, he's definitely in contention for Offensive Player of the Year. Like, that's no doubt. But, would they give the MVP to a running back in today's NFL? We get a little iffy. But Offensive Player of the Year, like, for sure, right? And the Steelers have done okay in some games stopping the run. Like, Chase Brown went off, but, like, Judkins more or less contained him. But Browns also threw it, like, what, 52 times with Dylan Gabriel, something like that? Oh, who else was it? Oh, my God. Josh Jacobs versus the Packers. He did not have a great game. But what he missed, Emmanuel Wilson found. And he had a decent day carrying the ball. At least in terms of a per attempt basis, right? So it's like, okay, kind of struggled to stop the run versus the Packers. And then you have the guy who's, leading Offensive Player of the Year votes. Then the secondary has been like 30th in the NFL in passing yards allowed. Quarterbacks, for the past 2 games, have completely dotted them up. Hello, Daniel Jones. So it's like the quarterback can, the Steelers will let you dot them up. Jonathan Taylor's amazing. Tyler Warren's good. Ooh, excuse me. Good, and that's just as a rookie good. Give him a couple years and he's probably going to be great. So, you have that, and it's just like, how do the Steelers even have a chance to win this game, right? How are they going to win this game? And in all sincerity, the way you win the game, again, going into it like I don't know the results of the game, going into the game, you basically have to wake the fuck up. On defense and probably on offense too. Yeah, our red zone efficiency is fucking amazing. Like, we're literally like top 3 in the league, probably, last I saw. So even if you want to say we're top 5 in the league, we're fantastic in the red zone. We just gotta get there on a regular basis. Again, don't have any notes here. Kind of just going what's in the noggin. Because I got this little one right here. 11 weeks old. So if you guys did enjoy this, please do leave a like. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. Turn notifications on. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.